Welcome to episode 14 of VR Roundtable. We are the podcast / YouTube show that covers VR news, and we also cover the VR gaming scene, mostly HTC Vive, PlayStation VR, and of course, Oculus Rift. So this is episode 14. Gary, what is some of the big news stories we got going on this week?
Yeah, we've got a few that we can talk about. The first one that I'll mention is one that we missed last episode about the announcement of Vive Studios, which is HTC's own sort of development studio, really, to provide some kind of content for the HTC Vive through their Viveport application. Now, the Viveport came out a few months ago, and it was sort of working alongside Steam, really, because a lot of the people that own the HTC Vive will purchase their content through Steam. That's just the way it works. But then you have this Viveport piece of software through HTC, which was providing quite a lot of the same content that is available on Steam. So it was sort of a lot of people were sort of saying it's not really irrelevant. I mean, it's sort of irrelevant in the grand scheme of things because you've got the Steam working as it does. But now with the announcement of Vive Studios, it does make a little bit more sense because HTC are going to be producing their own content, which will probably be released exclusively through Viveport in order for them to capitalize on VR and get some kind of software through it. So, you know, we've got these exactly the same thing with Oculus Rift. We've got Oculus Studios, which provide some good content, as now we're aware, because they're bringing out some titles for the Touch, and we as HTC Vive owners can use that with Revive. So they produce some pretty high quality content, and hopefully HTC can do this as well. I mean, it's going to annoy some people because you're using the word exclusivity, which they haven't said yet, but we can only assume that to be the case. But I know that you guys saw this as well. Steve, did you? What did you think about this?
Yeah, I definitely saw it. I think largely it's a good thing. You know, it's no secret that if you do any kind of research, if you're on the market to buy one of these headsets, you do any research, you're going to come across opinions that say the Oculus has better software. And maybe pound for pound, you know, quality per title available, that's true. I think the amount of content on Steam there's plenty of quality, but it is kind of dragged down by a vast amount of kind of tech demos and amateur you know, just experiments and things of that sort. So I think someone trying to come in with a publisher's focus to maybe bring the average quality per title available, you know, if you want to call that a ratio type thing, bringing that up, I think is good. There's obviously concerns that if we have to get this through Viveport and that the quality of that plugin, for lack of a better word, that it may be problems. But I think if there's a lot of good games that come with this, more people will be utilizing Viveport, and that'll give them an opportunity to make that a better experience itself as well.
Yeah, I'll just say that HTC is trying to find out a way to make a little bit of money off this whole deal. Certainly, they're making a profit off the headsets. We can kind of agree on that. And Viveport is an opportunity for them to have their own little store, and they can make their own little money there. And I think it's pretty big for the Asian market. I don't think Steam as we know it is available in China. And I think HTC has got, I don't know if they have different versions of Viveport where they have one for our market and one for Asia, but I believe they are trying to make a lot of their money over there and have a store over there that people can buy from.
Yeah, I mean, you can't really blame HTC for trying to capitalize on this a little bit, because when you look at it, Valve are, they're selling software to the Vive and to the Oculus Rift. They're sort of they don't care who they sell their software to, so they're making their money through it. So you've got to feel a little bit that HTC probably feel like they're being pushed out of it a little bit by Valve, even though they've developed the Vive with them. So I don't think you can really blame HTC for doing this. It's just fragmenting it a little bit that's a little probably more annoying for us, because as gamers on PC, we like to purchase all our games from Steam. It's just convenient to have it all in one place, and when you're separating it up, so you've got to buy certain things through Viveport, it's not as convenient.
You know, ultimately though, when we think about this digital future that we're in, what companies love more than anything, I mean, this is the new catnip for all of these media companies, is that if you get locked into their ecosystem, and if you're buying product in their ecosystem and you start to develop a library in their ecosystem, how more likely would you be to move to a completely new ecosystem when you already have all this money that has been put into Steam, for example? I mean, think how many Steam games we all probably have. And you have all those Steam games in there. And so everybody is like, well, I want it on Steam. I want it on Steam because that's my ecosystem. That's where all my money has gone into. So if I start using some completely different ecosystem, it's like, well, what about Steam? And so every company wants to lock you in, and it's a psychological thing. It's a subconscious thing. And so everybody wants to make their online store that they can make money from. They're all going to try to do it.
Yeah, we've seen it before. You know, you've got Ubisoft and people like that. It's frustrating when you have to play a Ubisoft title and you have to load up Uplay in order to get to it, and it's all these things. I mean, everybody's trying, like you say, Anthony, everybody's trying to sort of get their own little ecosystem in order to secure a certain customer base, I suppose. But another news story that happened last week was quite a big one, really, and a bit of a surprise as well. There was Brenden Iribe, it was announced, is no longer the CEO of Oculus, and he's being moved over to lead a PC-focused VR team within Facebook, which, I mean, I don't know exactly what that means. I think from some of the quotes that I read about this, he was sort of saying that he wants to get into a more hands-on approach and get back into more sort of engineering and developing hardware type of a situation, but I don't know too much more than that, really.
I don't either. Maybe I misinterpreted it, but did it say that he was going to lead a PC driven VR team within Facebook or within Oculus? I know Facebook's the parent company, of course, but you know, if Facebook's going to try to journ their own focus as opposed to Oculus focus, that may be more meaningful than the fact that that Brenden Iribe is trading positions.
Yeah, the actual quote, well, the title of the article, when it went into detail, it did say a VR team within Facebook. It didn't mention Oculus, so.
Yeah, that's pretty interesting, and I don't think they've announced, or maybe I missed it, a replacement CEO yet, or even an interim.
Not as far as I know, no.
Yeah. So yeah, we don't know the impacts, what this truly means, if it's writing on the wall, if it's a good thing, a bad thing. I think doing PC focus, you know, that's kind of one of the things that, for me personally, that I don't necessarily appreciate about the Oculus stores. They have that. The gear, I guess it's the gear and the mobile focus, and that's not something I'm personally interested in. And the fact that, you know, we talk about the amount of money that Facebook has spent and that Oculus has spent, and even though they've done very well with their own studios, some of that cash is going towards a mobile front. And you know, I'm not sure that for me that it's a value that I appreciate. You know, mobile just seems like it's so far behind.
Yeah, I mean, mobile is hands-free and everything, though. It is the dream of no wires.
Yeah, that's the thing. It's although it has got that big advantage, it's just as well, once they get to the point where they've got some kind of positional tracking within mobile, which I think obviously they're working on as quickly as they can. At the moment, I think it's a problem with the amount of heat that's produced because the CPU has to work so hard within the phone to calculate all these calculations it has to do, that they just can't get around that at the moment. But yeah, mobile is a big thing, but it just exactly the same as you, Steve. It doesn't really interest me at the moment. Maybe in a couple of years when it's got a little bit more advanced.
It kind of sounds like a demotion for him, and I just wonder if Oculus has kind of come to the realization that PC VR is not going to have this incredible, huge explosion right away, and it's going to be a slow burn. And so maybe they're kind of shifting their focus a little bit, where it's like, we were really, let's look at this mobile thing, let's look at the PC thing, and then of course their Santa Cruz prototype that I'm sure they're still working on.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at it as well, you've got John Carmack, who is focused pretty much entirely on the mobile side of the Oculus platform, really. So he's really interested in it, and I don't know, it does sort of feel like they're not necessarily, I mean, I'm not saying they're abandoning the PC side, but it does feel a little bit like maybe where the money is and where the popularity of mobile is, that could be a focus for them moving forward. Not that I think they will abandon PC or even put it to the sidelines. I think that's still a focus as well. And also, I mean, just the other bit of news that went along with this, a few days later, it was mentioned that Palmer Luckey's new role within Oculus would be announced shortly. We've still not had any word on that either, but I mean, who knows what's going to happen with him, really.
I bet he has a good tale to tell. Shout out to Lucky's tale.
You just won't let that die, will you? You know what? But speaking of Oculus and mobile and how they're doing Gear VR, and they have this relationship with Samsung, and it's interesting to think about how is that relationship with Samsung? How does it really work? Because at some point, I have to believe Samsung is like this 800-pound gorilla that's in the background that people aren't really thinking about too much when it comes to VR. All you have to do is look around your house and look at the TVs you have and the computer monitors that you have. And a lot of these 2D screens might say Samsung underneath it. And basically any company that is in that business, they have to know that as with everything, change can be dramatic, it can be swift, and things can be left in the dust. And I personally believe two-dimensional screens are going to be old school eventually, and we're going to look at them like, can you believe people had these freaking external screens? Like, they didn't just have screens everywhere whenever they wanted them at any size. And we know that Samsung has to be concerned about this, and there was a news story just a couple of days ago. The virtual reality summit in San Diego on Thursday, there was a vice president there of Samsung Electronics, and this vice president revealed some new details about a Samsung Gear VR 2 that would be presented in a very short period of time. And then that they had another technology that they're working on, a technology that is built upon similar technology from Magic Leap and Microsoft's HoloLens. One of the quotes is, Samsung is building 2 VR engines, Sung Hoon said. We have enhanced the rendering engine, and Gear VR 3 could be ready in the near future. So basically the big news here, we know that Samsung is going to continue to work on the Gear VR. You see how many commercials they have. I talked about that commercial, the Christmas commercial where everybody's putting the headset on and they're like, oh, and then they have tears falling from their eyes. And we talked about that before, but hey, that commercial, let's give a slow clap to Samsung for that commercial, because hey, they're carrying the VR industry single-handedly on their backs with that commercial. That you think Sony doesn't like that commercial for PSVR, or Oculus doesn't love those commercials, or HTC doesn't love those? Those are great commercials because they get VR into the ether, you know. And we know that Samsung is going to continue to work on this Gear VR, but now we know that they have a HoloLens competitor as well. And somewhere I read another article about this, and the executive that was there, this the vice president actually mentioned Magic Leap by name, which I thought was a little bit curious, because there has been a little bit of rumors that have been floating around that Magic Leap at some point could look to an outside company for the whole infrastructure and for building millions of devices and all that type of thing, that people weren't too sure if Magic Leap was just going to try to do the whole ball of wax themselves, or if maybe they would partner with a larger company. And Samsung is one of those major companies. I know you guys didn't happen to see this news story before the show, but what do you guys think about Samsung? Because they are looming in the background.
Well, Samsung's a major player, as you mentioned. You know, they have lots of devices, but a big part of their business, and I don't know how true or how much, but a big part of their business is making things. So if you have an iPhone, parts of your iPhone is made by Samsung. Parts of, you know, I wouldn't be surprised if there weren't Samsung components inside your PS4 or your PSVR even. So they make a lot of stuff. They put their name on a lot of stuff, but their stuff goes into products with other names on it. So they are a major player in the consumer electronics space. And like you said, they've dumped a lot into Gear VR. Mentioned a minute ago that I'm personally not, you know, that excited about mobile VR, just because it's such a comparatively a lackluster experience to the tethered, more powerful ones. But it pushes the industry forward. Like you said, it gets people thinking about it. More consumers come across it, and it opens the door for people to say, okay, well, now I got this VR thing. It was cool, but what can I get that's better? And that will inevitably steer them towards more Oculus, more HTC Vive, more PSVR, more, you know, whatever else Samsung comes out with. So I think all around it's a pretty great thing.
Yeah, Samsung have been, I mean, if you look at it from the outside, it appears sort of Samsung have been dipping their toe in VR, because they've brought out these Gear VR headsets, and they're fantastic, but there's not a lot that goes into them. I mean, as far as I know anyway, they look more or less like just a case, some kind of enclosure for the phone to go in, and that's pretty much it. I know they've got probably some extra sensors and things like that, but they're, on the outside, they're not that much more than like a Google Cardboard type of a HMD, really. And I'm sure, because I've not actually used one, so I'm sure there's people out there that are going to correct me on that. But with Samsung, not just Samsung, but a lot of these tech companies now, with the rise of VR in this last year, there's got to be, I mean, I would imagine that pretty much just about every single tech company out there has got to be looking to VR in some way. Now, whether that will progress to the point where they're going to manufacture something, some kind of hardware to go along with that, is another question. But it's just such big news at the minute, whether you're interested in it or not. Everybody sort of has a passing of seeing something to do with VR, and these tech companies have got to be keeping their eye on it. And Samsung got in there early. It's been in there for a long time, and I think they developed the screens for the Oculus Rift as well. So they're a big player within VR at the moment, and if they can sort of capitalize on this by bringing out some kind of HMD themselves, some kind of untethered HMD standalone, which uses some kind of augmented reality type of setup similar to HoloLens or Magic Leap, then that would be big news, and Samsung are primed to really take advantage of that, I think.
I've slept since we did our last show, but was Samsung one of the names that were in that alliance, that VR alliance, with Oculus and whomever?
I think so.
Yeah, I think they were as well. I can't say for sure, but I think they probably were.
You know, we've mentioned so many times that we're in the baby stages, VR infancy. So there's a lot that will develop and a lot to come out. So I think it's good news that we have some information that they're doing a deeper dive into VR as a whole, that they're part of that alliance. And, you know, because the big concern when you start getting a lot of major players, you know, Microsoft start getting involved, Samsung starting to get more involved, Sony, Oculus, HTC, is fragmentation. So, you know, having an alliance and it becoming sort of like you know, like the Blu-ray Alliance, and you know, it being an open standard to kind of pin down and keep fragmentation limited is also a important factor.
Yeah, well, you had these, not just that Alliance announcement a couple of weeks ago, which is big news, and that's great. But also you had this thing with the Kronos sort of standard API for virtual reality as well, which is really going to help. All these things, it just really feels like all these companies are really, really trying to work together in a lot of ways. I mean, I'm sure there's still a hell of a lot of competition between them, but it does show a lot of maturity with these companies, that they are they understand that VR faces all these challenges, and they can sort of work together to at least build some kind of market for it in the future.
And 20 years of royalties from the Alliance, the licensing that'll come with that, whatever emblem is on every VR product from now to 2050.
Yeah, that's true.
All right, so what do we have next?
Well, we can just mention one other news story just very quickly. The Nintendo Switch VR patent that came up last week. There's not a lot of information about it, but I'll kick this over to you, Anthony. Did you see this, and what are your thoughts on it?
Yeah, I saw it. I mean, how do you chop 720p in half? I just don't understand that. So
Yeah.
unless they're just putting that patent out there because maybe they'll have like they have the new 3DS, the new 3DS, there's a version of the 3DS that you can get where the 3D screen is better than regular 3DSs, and it has a different little processor in it that can emulate Super Nintendo a lot better. And I think there's a couple of games that run slightly better on the new 3DS. So Nintendo sometimes does come out with this enhanced version, and the only conceivable thought that I have is maybe they'll have an enhanced version that has a much higher resolution somehow, and then that could go in a headset.
Has that resolution been, this is something I'm not 100% on, is the resolution of the Switch tablet, is that been confirmed as 720p? I know that's the figure that a lot of people were saying, because if that is true, if it is 720p, then it does seem far too low to be used in VR.
Well, that's the tablet itself. I think when it's docked on the whatever the dock is, that'll I'm presuming would have an HDMI cable go into your TV. Hopefully it'll just dip into 1080p mode. So, you know, the patent itself, yeah, I'm in Anthony's camp. I'm concerned about performance, but on the same time, they kind of have their own built-in wireless solution, which is pretty cool. So if they can, you know, detect that the VR is plugged in and kind of dump that 720p resolution and come up into 1080p mode, then.
But the screen, you're limited to the screen. The screen is in your headset.
Oh, is that the tablet that you carry around, that is going to slide into the HMD itself?
Exactly.
Oh, okay. I
misread
I guess the image, that I thought it was going to basically be like a battery pack type thing, and the headset would plug into the tablet. So yeah, well, if you're right, yeah, if the screen that is used for VR is the same tablet screen, then yeah, I don't see how that's going to work. It'll work, it just won't look any good.
No, that's what it looked like from the patent. Like I said, there's not a lot of information really, and the problem with this is they could be just safeguarding themselves for the future, so that somebody doesn't bring out some kind of compatible thing that can some kind of adapt or sell third party or something like that. But
I think relatively, and when I say relatively, in the last 4 weeks or so, I believe Shigeru Miyamoto was quoted as saying it'll be a while before Mario's in VR or something to that effect. So who knows what they're doing? Everything coming together. It may just be like you say, just trying to grab the patent so no one else, so Sony or somebody else does, and they don't have any immediate plans to do this.
Yeah. Nintendo has said quite a few times in the past, hinted over the past year or so, that they're not really pushing towards any kind of VR solution or anything like that. So all we have to go on is these pictures from the patent. But yeah, time will tell, and we'll see where it goes, really. But that's pretty much all the news stories I had. I don't know if there's anything else you guys want to mention.
I have a quick one. Racket NX. Do you guys remember the Racket NX demo? Possibly one of the best demos on the HTC Vive. That game doesn't get anywhere near the amount of respect that it should get, in my opinion. The developers of that game, One Hamza, they recently announced that their early access version for the game will be arriving in late January. So it is coming soon, and it's going to include competitive multiplayer and a new single player mode. But it's early access, so it's not going to be the full complete game, but it is coming out. And that's a pretty big game to keep your eye on if you have a HTC Vive sometime in January when things get a little bit boring.
Yeah, I played that a lot. I thought it was really good. I'm put off by it, you know, next month and then only early access. But yeah, that game was one of the more, I think I may even enjoy it more than Holoball, which Holoball is a great game, of course. So I almost forgot about it. I haven't played it in such a long time, but like you, I thought it was one of the better experiences for sure.
Yeah, I definitely prefer it to Holoball. I think it's a great game. They've got the feel of the haptics or something, whatever the sound maybe. It might be the sound, but it just feels great when you hit that ball. Much better than Holoball. And I do like Holoball as well. It's a good game, but for me, Racket NX was, the demo at least, was really, really good.
If you look at the hours played in Racket NX, for me, it's like 7 hours or something. Because that demo, you can load that demo up and just play it and play it and play it, because I never really got to a point where like the demo stopped or something. So I played that demo more than a lot of full games.
Bill, I kept getting game overs though. I couldn't keep going. Maybe I just didn't catch the objective of the game. I probably have hour and a half or so in it, so I had plenty of game overs. So that was my limiting factor.
Yeah, so any last news stories, or should we go ahead and get into... Oh, one little quick thing, this will just take a second, is in the HoloLens department, have you guys heard of this company called Meta? Or I guess it's Meta. They have a headset that's very, very similar to HoloLens, and they just recently showed the unboxing for their Meta 2 development kit. And I believe it's in the $3,000 area, and it's very similar to HoloLens. So it's not really going to be something we're going to see in the consumer market, but just, you know, something to keep your eye on, because there are a number of these companies that are all in there, and eventually they'll have something that they can kick to the public when they can get it down to about $1,000.
Yeah. Have either of you had the chance to use the HoloLens?
No.
Oh, I have. It was pretty cool. My company, you know, we have nothing to do with consumer electronics, but, you know, we have a marketing arm and things like that. So we try to stay on top of it. So we have a couple Rifts, a couple Vives, and a couple HoloLenses. And our IT group, I'm not in that group, but they did a tech day one day at work and had people playing the Vive and Oculus and the HoloLens. So having already played the Vive, I sat and watched a lot of people play. I didn't play myself, but I got to try the HoloLens, and we just had a simple demo set up where you could see some of our products sitting on a real table. So it was pretty cool, but the I guess I'll say the field of view, it's not quite the same as what we talk about on a VR headset, but when you could see the projected image over the augmented reality, it was real narrow. Like you had to stand in one specific spot to see what you want. If you just tilted your head up just a slight, things would disappear. And, you know, it's very, very, very early tech. And you know, I walked away very underwhelmed, but it was also thankful for the opportunity. I got to try something without laying out any of my own cash. Yeah,
I'd love to try a HoloLens, and I know the Meta headset, that's got a slightly bigger field of view from what I've heard. But yeah, I'd love to give one of these augmented reality headsets a try.
Oh, you know what? The big difference between the Meta is it's wired. It doesn't have its own computer. And it does have it has like a 90-degree field of view, which that would be really interesting with having little holograms and stuff, because I believe HoloLens is like 40 degrees or even lower.
Yeah, I would believe that. It was real narrow. Like it took a lot of fiddling just to be able to see. The guy that was demoing it to me, he was like, "You see it, sitting over there on the table?" And no, I don't see anything. And eventually I had to kind of contort my whole body just to get everything lined up the right way. So yeah, it was so, like, I guess they're dev kits, they're not really meant to be a consumer product, but it was so stripped down, like it would seem basically unusable.
All right, well, that covers quite a few different news stories there. Why don't we go ahead and get into some of the games that we've been playing recently? And one game that all of us, I hope, got to try out was a game called Bullet Sorrow. Why don't I go ahead and kick it over to Gary? Gary, how would you describe your experience with Bullet Sorrow?
Yeah, well, I played this as a demo couple of months ago, I think it was, before it was released, and this was a game that I was looking forward to, and I was following the developers. They kept sort of saying how they delayed it a couple of times, the actual release of this game. But when it comes down to it, the game itself, it's a sort of a shooting wave shooter in effect, but you do move through corridors. So you've got this idea of where you're traveling through a level rather than just standing in one place or certain places around a set area, the way you do in raw data. And just mentioning raw data, I will say that this game does seem to take quite a lot of inspiration from that game, and I'm sure that was one of the what they were looking at when they were designing this game. But the game itself, I mentioned it a few episodes ago when I did play the demo, because it really impressed me. There was something, the way the shooting is so satisfying and the sound is exceptionally good, I think, in this game. Just the little pop of the gun, and when you hit the enemies, it's just a satisfying game to play. Now, when I was playing the demo, like I say, I was really looking forward to the full release. Now, when I've played this game as a full release, I've got to say I was slightly disappointed, slightly underwhelmed, only because it's basically like an extended demo, from what I can see, and it doesn't really contain anything extra than what I played within that demo, other than the boss at the very end, the huge robot at the end of level 1 that comes out, and that's pretty. It's a good thing, but overall, I was a little bit underwhelmed. I wanted something more, and this was something I was mentioning as well, where there's no real narrative to this game. There's sort of fragments that you get from somebody who talks to you as you're going through the level.
Wait, Gary. There is some Academy Award-winning voice acting going on in this game.
Yeah,
your announcer, I mean, she has to be up for like Golden Globes.
Well, I think they did the best they could, because but they yeah, she has some weird ways of talking, but I guess it's just where it was developed and stuff. They've done the best they can, I think. But yeah, it's overall, like I say, I was a little bit underwhelmed. The one thing I would say is that it's worth trying the demo, because that'll tell you all you really need to know about this game. But don't expect too much more at this stage beyond that, I'd say.
Steve?
Yeah, I thought it was it's missing the narrative, like you say. It's really the only downside. I thought the mechanics themselves were really good. Like you say, the guns seem to have a little bit of weight to them. And the sounds, for me, it's when you get a headshot, you just hear this nice little, and just like, when you get a headshot too, like you don't even have to, you could have turned before the headshot registers, and when you got one. So everything was really good. It just, the only thing that got me was just, poof, you're in this sort of industrial / sci-fi kind of space, and you're shooting people. You don't really know why. You don't know who you are. You don't know how you got there, at least as far as I got. So that's the only takeaway. It kind of it doesn't, there doesn't seem to be any purpose, like, and that bothered me a little bit. But the actual gameplay itself, I thought it was really good, and I was having a lot of fun. And like I mentioned in a previous episode talking about Arizona Sunshine, I kind of let myself go. I let myself get more into it, and using cover a little more, and popping up and doing things I didn't have to in order to just shoot the bad guy. you know, so that let me have a little more fun with it, and I'm definitely going to play it some more. For whatever reasons, I didn't get to a boss, so I have to play it a little longer, I guess. I don't.
Hey, you know what? Any game, like you're describing, Steve, the idea of kind of like getting into the game and kind of going with the game and almost like role playing just a little bit, like you're this badass action hero. And what I've noticed is any game that gives you like two guns that you can hold in your hand and it's room scale and you teleport. The only thing I that kind of bothered me with this game is when you're trying to move around on the ground, it'll have like this blue grid. And if you can see the blue grid, you can teleport around within wherever that blue grid goes. But a lot of times that blue grid gets cut off to a certain point, and it's like, no, I want to go over there. I want to go over there. And the game won't let you go over there. What it kind of turns into is it's like a shooting gallery, but it's like, okay, you move to this spot. Now it's a shooting gallery. Okay, now you get a little bit more of an area to move to. Now it's a shooting gallery, which is fine. And it actually works good from that standpoint to me. Also, if you have somebody that wants a dude bro game, this one is the closest one you're going to get. I mean, you got those military guys that you get to gun down. It has a little bit of a Call of Duty look with all these military soldier guys. And they did a few different animations for how the guys die. But a lot of times the little soldier guys move in a very pre-programmed manner where they're all kind of doing the same thing. But there's times when you're looking around at the graphics and you're like, man, if I didn't know any better, this is like 90% of raw data's graphics almost. It's kind of like a poor man's raw data, basically. But I had fun going through there and shooting the guys, and I would get to certain areas and I'd be holding my guns out, you know, and like full 360, you know, turning around and looking for guys coming behind me and stuff, and kind of role playing like I'm in this action movie, and I had some fun with it. The interesting thing about it is when you're in there, it's like level 1, level 2, level 3. I was only ever in level 1. Is level 2 and level 3 coming in the future, or?
I don't know. I've not beat that final boss of level 1, to be honest. The big robot guy who comes out at the end. Yeah, I've not defeated him, so I don't know. I think
Me either. I haven't defeated him either.
No, but I think it'll just carry on. I think they are bringing out some more levels in the future, but I think as far as I know, you can play the level 2. The thing about this game as well that I'll mention is, you know, when you're teleporting around the blue area and you got all these guys that are coming down on you, and you just think, well, I'll move around a little bit and they won't be able to catch me quite as quickly. But one thing I've noticed with this game is no matter how much you dodge around, they immediately focus in on you. So if you move around quickly, it won't make any difference. They'll still get their shot straight in on you as soon as you teleport to a new section. And it's just some small things like this which are a little bit annoying with this game, and something I didn't really notice as much in the demo because I guess I didn't play it as long. But yeah, I mean, I like it. And as you say, Steve, I think the mechanics of the game and the way it works are very, very good, and it's very satisfying. But it's like with a lot of games on the HTC Vive, you just want that little bit more. You just want that little bit more depth, a little bit more narrative.
Your character in the game can take 1,000,000 bullets. Have you guys noticed that? Like, I mean, you can literally take millions upon millions. It's like, suspend your disbelief right now, because this is not an accurate game in any way, shape, or form, because you are a bullet sponge out there.
Well, I noticed on the Steam page, they in the last patch, it said something to the effect of new easier mode for press who kept complaining. Or something like that.
Yeah,
not that we're pressed. I don't think I enabled this new easy mode, but I thought that was kind of funny that they just kind of called the press out and said, "Hey, quit whining. Here's easy mode for you." But I was gonna say before though, if you know, like when the guys are running in after you kind of cleared an area or cleared the immediate and the new set or the new wave of bad guys are running in, they kind of charge forward like linebackers in American football, and they won't do anything until they get to their pre-programmed spot, and you can just shoot them while they're running in like dummies. I thought that was kind of that broke the immersion a little bit for me, but it was still fun. You know, I like it, and I don't know how much it even retails for. You know, we got the key from the developer, but do either of you know how much it costs?
I think it's £15 over here, so I guess around $20, something like that.
Yeah, I think, you know, if you're looking for a shooter game that looks good and feels good, that, you know, it could be worth that for sure.
If it was $10, I would say buy it straight up. At 20, I might be, I don't know. I mean, there is a demo, so try the demo. One thing that is cool about it, I don't know if you guys have experienced this, but have you been in a game where you're battling an end of level boss like you battle the boss in this game? That was pretty exciting. You have to, I mean, this gigantic ass robot comes over at you and you're trying to shoot him in certain spots. And then he does this like smashing and you have to basically teleport quickly out of the way, but you're limited in how much you can teleport. So you got to be kind of careful with how much you're teleporting. And I battled that robot guy where I thought, I got to kill this guy. Eventually I got to kill this guy, but I always end up dying. But it was pretty cool to be in a boss battle with a giant robot. I haven't really experienced that I can really think of so far.
No, it's quite impressive when that comes out. And that boss, just quickly, the way that boss works is quite clever as well. I do like the fact that when he comes over to you, just before he's about to attack you, you have to hit him in 3 seemingly random sections of his body. So it's all about being quick before so you have to shoot him in the right place before he attacks you, and then you have to quickly teleport out the way. So it's quite good. It makes you, it's like a sharpshooter type thing. As soon as you know where you got to hit him, then you have to shoot him in those sections.
I didn't get to the boss, but I just kind of say it sounds like he has some scale to him, that he's probably large in size. If so, the one thing that I still remember from Serious Sam is the boss at the end of each level. That's the one takeaway, that big scale. And, you know, and I say this to kind of back Anthony up, because that is one of the things missing from a lot of VR games, especially so on the Vive, I think, is you're missing big scale, big giant enemies. And I think it's great that this game has them. It makes me want to go play it, you know, sooner than later, because I want to see the boss. That's one of the things I really liked from Serious Sam.
Yeah, I'd like to see the second level of this game, and I kept trying to kill that boss, but I don't know. And the difficulty, I'm on the easiest difficulty. There's actually 2 levels that you could bump it up, and I'm like, well, I'm already on easy. I don't know what to do here. So, but
Anthony,
not too bad.
On the press difficulty.
Yeah,
yeah, I am too. I am.
Okay, so another experience that I was hoping all of us would be able to try, and unfortunately, I think one of us was not able to try this, but similar name. We were just talking about Bullet Sorrow, and now we can talk about Bullet Train, which is actually basically a tech demo for Oculus that they used at like E3 and GDC and stuff like that. They would give journalists tech demos and they would put them in this bullet train experience. And now that Oculus Touch has been released, this is basically a free demo for anybody that has an Oculus account to try out. And we could try it in Revive. Excuse me, Gary, I know you got a chance to try out Bullet Train. What did you think going through that experience?
Yeah, this was another one I think Bullet Sorrow took inspiration from, to be honest. The Bullet Train is great. I mean, it's very short. It's only, what do you think, maybe 5-10 minutes, something like that, I would say. But it's a game exactly very similar to Bullet Sorrow, really. You know, you start off in this carriage of a train and you're traveling through, and this is sort of where the tutorial takes you through certain sections. So it teaches you how to teleport, how to pick up guns, how to shoot targets, all the usual things. And then you're also able to slow down time exactly in the same way as you are in Bullet Sorrow, and you get these flashbacks of the Matrix, as you do in a lot of HTC Vive games. For some reason, they really love this bullet time mechanic. But Bullet Train does this exceptionally well. And the advantage is with this is when you slow time down, basically automatically slows time down. Whenever somebody shoots at you, an enemy takes a shot at you, it will automatically slow down time around you. So it's almost as if you've got some kind of a time bubble around you, sort of a couple of meters in radius all around you. So as soon as a bullet enters this time bubble, it will slow down. And this enables you to actually either dodge out the way of the bullets, or you can pluck them out of the air and throw them back at the enemies. And when you do this, it's pretty much automatic. It'll shoot an enemy with this bullet. You don't really have to aim it. You just have to throw it back. And the game is very, very polished. And we know this is done by Epic Games. And they did this as like a tech demo, which they've now taken to sort of progress with it. And it's become the game that will be Robo Recall. And they took some of the elements from Bullet Train and have now developed a full title called Robo Recall, which is coming out early next year, I think it is. So I'd be really excited to play that. But for this particular one, it is a tech demo, very short, but very, very impressive. And yeah, I encourage people to definitely try this one.
Steve?
I did not get to play it, so I tried, and it wasn't without effort. So I'll just quickly talk about my problem, because I know some other people are, and maybe some listeners you know, think it's their system. So when I try to launch the game, it launches. I hear the train sound, but about 30-40 seconds in, my Vive goes back to the environment that you see when you normally turn the headset on, whatever environment you've chosen. So it's I've done some research. I've tried multiple versions of Revive. I've tried uninstalling the game in Oculus. I've tried going into the Steam VR beta, coming out of the Steam VR beta. So if you, the listener, are having the same problem, it's not you. It's a bug. It seems like it's probably a bug within Bullet Train itself. I believe some people with Oculus headsets are experiencing the same thing. So I do not think it's a Revive issue. But the developer of Revive is having difficulties pinning it down because he himself does not have the issue. So if you want to play this, just keep your eye on it and try it ever so often. That's really about the only chance you're going to get, because it's completely broken if you can't get it to stay in your headset.
Yeah, that sucks that you haven't been able to get it to work. I know with Revive, sometimes, you know how when you have your Vive headset on, right, and you're in that Steam dashboard, and at the bottom you hit the menu button on your controller and the menu pops up, and then at the bottom of the menu there's like Steam, Revive, you know, there's these like 4 bubbles that are at the bottom. Is that where you try to load the game up, or do you actually try to load the game up from within your like on your actual desktop, where you drag it to Revive and then like run and like inject it style?
I've tried it all ways. I've tried launching it within the Steam on the desktop, where you would launch any game, VR or not. I've tried within the headset. I've tried manually injecting it by browsing to the Oculus installation directory. I've tried every way. It's just it behaves the same way each time. So it's just the game.
That sucks. Well, yep. I can say that I was able to try it, and I mean it's not a huge thing anyway, but what this is good for is it's good demo material, you know, because it's like 5-6 minutes, and the graphics, this is Epic Games, and so they were trying to screw around and make this pretty graphically advanced. When you very first start off the experience, you're on a subway car, and it looks like a pretty realistic subway, and you have your fake Oculus hands that are floating there, and there's the railings, you know, that you can grab on a subway train, and you can kind of take your hand, and if you hit whatever button it is where you stick your finger out, you can kind of slap at these things and they'll kind of move back and forth, which is kind of cool. And you're just going along this subway car. But one thing that I thought was really cool while you're on the subway car is you can glance out the window, and the car is, you know, the train's moving along at a certain speed, and you're in like this train station, and you can see the chairs and stuff that are over there, and kind of like the train station terminal as it's moving along. And just for a brief second, I was like looking over there and just kind of looking out the window. It was just moving like that. And I was like, man, that is almost reality. That is almost like reality. Just that quick second or two where it's moving and it just looks so natural. Even though the graphics were not like super high-end graphics or anything, it's not photoreal by any stretch of the imagination, but just for a very brief second there, it actually looked kind of real with the movement in the subway car. That was really cool. And the enemies that you fight in there, it is similar to Bullet Sorrow because they don't really have a lot of artificial intelligence that they programmed into them. It's a tech demo that they just wanted to show off the graphics of the Unreal Engine. And it's pretty cool. You'll pick up guns and there's some slowing down of time. Grabbing the bullets and throwing the bullets at a soldier, the idea that you could grab a bullet and throw a bullet at a soldier and it's actually going to hurt them is a little far-fetched, but you eventually get to the end and there is a boss monster, and in that it's a little cooler what you grab and do there. But it's a pretty cool experience. Speaking of Oculus and speaking of touch, I believe all three of us tried this other game as well. It's called Ripcoil. This is a game where...
Before we change directions, I wanted to ask, since I didn't get to play it, does it look like that teaser demo showdown that they had on Oculus? Did you ever play that?
That's one I've never been able to get to work. I've never been able to get that showdown thing to work. I've tried it a lot of times, never got it to work.
Because that looks really good. The whole thing is in maybe this bullet time, and you creep real slow. And for a lot of people, it can give them motion sickness because there's artificial motion to it. You're not doing anything, but yet you're moving. And then at the end of it, there's this big robotic creature like thing that looks like a boss, and I think Showdown is one of the best looking things I've seen in VR, and I thought a game that could take advantage of that would be really cool. So I was just curious if Bullet Train seemed to be in the same vein. Gary, have you done Showdown?
I've not. No, I've not tried that one either. So I can't really help you out on that, unfortunately.
Well, it's free. I give you two a homework assignment. Please go check it out and get back with me.
I have it installed. I tried to get it way back in the Lucky Tail days. Now there's a real Lucky Tail reference right there. No, but I mean,
shout out again, buddy. Shout out.
Yeah. But I tried, I downloaded that Showdown. It was like the epic Unreal VR demo, Showdown, blah, blah, blah. And I never could get that thing to run. But now that Revive has kind of been updated, Revive has been updated such that you can just hit that Revive tab and just choose a game like you're choosing a game, and bam, it's so convenient. Much props to Cross VR, the guy that's working on Revive.
Yeah, it's almost like seamless integration now with Steam VR. It's just so easy to use, and it's got automatic updates now as well. So it will just tell you when there's an update, and you just install the update straight away, and you're back up and running. It's great.
We got to really hope that Oculus doesn't like change their runtime thing and screw with anything. Just let us live, Yeah, but we all got to try Ripcoil, and Ripcoil is a game, I believe it's free as long as you buy something on the store. So you can buy like a 99-cent game to get this game Ripcoil and then have it on your Oculus account. We have all tried it, I believe. Steve, I know you didn't have a very good time with it. Why don't we start off with you?
Sure. I thought the game was really original. So, you're just doing something you don't normally do. It's got good graphics. I don't know if it's made in Unreal, but it kind of looks like Showdown, and it looks like some of the Unreal games that I've seen. It's very robotic and industrious. But the premise of the game is it's a sports title in vain, in that you're on this platform and you have a disc, an energy disc type thing, and it's like throwing frisbee. You throw it and it bounces off of the walls and it comes back to you, and you have to catch it. And if you don't catch it, then you've been scored on. And I have to assume that when you play online or when you play against somebody, you're not bouncing it off the walls, but rather they're catching it on their end, and they're trying to get it past you, kind of like how someone would score a goal in soccer, or as Gary would call it, football. So it's really cool. It's really polished. Looks good. Feels good. The issue I have, so you're on this platform, and your character that you represent in the game, you're standing there, and in order to, I guess, make the game more of a challenge, they made it so that you could move your platform side to side by what feels like, I don't know, 30 feet or so in real life. And in order to move your platform, you just kind of tilt your head and to side, and that's how the platform moves. But for me, it kind of gave me a little bit of motion sickness. I don't even want to call it motion sickness. It didn't feel quite right. I don't know. You're looking like you got something to say, Anthony. What am I doing wrong?
Whoops.
And you're muted.
I'm sorry, I was muted. Yep. Steve, I think I know what maybe your problem is. Don't use your head for that. You got to use your hips, man, like your thighs. You just shake your legs like that. You got to get low. You got to get low.
Yeah. Well, I did do that. And, I probably should have prefaced it that I wasn't just standing there with a broken neck. I was leaning my whole body, but it's real sensitive, and I guess. I should check to see if there's a setting for that in the menu. But it's pretty sensitive. So just the slight little lean would cause it to quickly ramp up to the other side. So I was having difficulties putting the platform in the position to grab the Frisbee disc thing that's being thrown around. And the only other little gripe I had, and it's probably the internet will just say get good, is that a lot of times I would miss the disc when I feel like I should have grabbed it. Like I felt like I did everything right, but for whatever reasons, I didn't grab the disc. Well, what do you guys think?
Yeah, well, I played this as well, and I've only played the practice section, so I've not played against anybody like another real life player or anything like that. So I've only gone through the practice section, and I've played it probably only 20 minutes just to get a feel of it, and I liked it. But it feels, I think the platform section, it just feel a little bit too sensitive, like you say, Steve. It feels, and maybe there is a setting, I don't know, but I guess that's part of the challenge of the game, though. It needs to be sensitive, so you need to get good at working that platform to move exactly where you want it to. Because for me, when I was playing it, I felt like sometimes it felt as if when I was leaning a long way, it wasn't moving quite as fast as it was before, and it didn't seem to have any sort of continuity to the movement for me. And maybe it was just something wrong with my setup, I don't know. But because I know I've read a lot about this game, and I know a lot of people do enjoy it, but I don't think it's a bad game by any means. It's interesting, and the presentation's very good. And one thing I'll say as well, with this game, it renders your arms, which we don't see a great deal in VR games. So it renders your full arm, your full body, and Raw Data does this as well. But for some reason, this game does it better than in any of the others that I've really played. It really felt like the arms were in the natural position where you expected them to be, whereas for me in Raw Data, it doesn't feel like that. They feel a little bit sort of off slightly. So that's something it did well. And maybe I just need to play this game a little bit longer to really get to grips with just how sensitive the platform movement is.
Yeah, so for me, man, I actually really love what I've played. My problem is I can't play an actual human opponent, so I don't really know what this game is like, because all I've been able to do is go into the practice mode. Anytime I try to go into battle mode or like quick match or whatever, either I'm in it and I'm just waiting and waiting and waiting and waiting, and it never actually hooks me up with somebody, or sometimes I try to go in it and it's like Oculus something network error or something like that. I'll get some type of message like that, and I'm trying to run it through Revive. And I did a post on Reddit. I said, if you're playing Ripcoil through Revive, is it possible? Or are you just stuck in practice for some weird reason? And people are like, no, you can play other people. But it hasn't worked for me. So I've been stuck in practice. But what I will say about practice is when I first got in there and you're on this platform, it seems really weird that you could just kind of lean to one side or another and it just goes, zzz, it's zooming all over the place, like with a really fast velocity. You would think, for me anyways, you would think that would really make you motion sick because you're not really moving like that in real life. But the way it works for me is because you are kind of moving your legs and physically you're shifting your weight, and it's reading that, and it just works so natural for me. I had a lot of fun with it. It's like downhill skiing or something. You know, I was just really getting into it and just sliding from one side to the other. And so what you would do is you'd have this disc and you would shoot it out to the wall like frisbee style. It would hit the wall and then it would come back at you. And when it comes back at you, what you do is you power up your fist. You have to have like a closed fist. And it's kind of weird on Revive because you got to hit the right combination of buttons so that it's a fist. And you like power up your fist and it turns green and it kind of vibrates a little bit. You get some haptic feedback with it. And when the disc is coming back, you punch it. And then it shoots off incredibly fast. But then it comes back at you. And I'm thinking, okay, I'm going to punch this thing again. Try to punch it. No, the punch doesn't work. And I tried it over and over again and realized once you punch the thing, now you got to catch it again. So punch it, then you can catch it. And then when you catch it, you earn like a couple of points or something, and then you fling it again. It's basically the same process. Ricochet, punch the thing one time, and then try to catch it. And like Steve was saying, there's times when you're leaning and it's like, oh, I should have had that. But it's like when the shot is returned, it goes too far, and you can't even physically get to that point, or you're just a little bit late. And then sometimes when the thing is swinging back, it's like you tilt over this way and you're like, shh, and then the thing's going over there. You're like, oh man, I overshot it way too much.
Do you feel like sometimes it has I don't want to say random, but that it's programmed in such a way that it'll change trajectories on you in a way that feels unnatural? Like you said, sometimes I feel like it's going really right. And then so you start going right, but then at the last second, it's like a curveball in baseball. It'll cut the other way.
For me, that's just mentioning quickly, Steve, for me, that's part of the problem where I think it's to do with the sensitivity of the platform. You know, I feel like I'm moving the right amount to catch this thing. And then all of a sudden, the platform feels like it just moves a little bit more. And maybe I am just leaning more and it shoots past me the other way. And that's how it feels. It does feel like that.
You have to learn to be really delicate and stuff with your movements sometimes. And I think this is one of those games where, to me, I believe the movement system works, and I think it's amazing how it does work, and it actually excites me for other VR games that could use this in some other way. I didn't know that I could just go like this and then have something go like that, and I wouldn't feel like I'm ready to barf, but I can do that in this game, which is exciting. But yeah, there is a lot of subtlety to it, and I think it really is how much we're moving. I don't think it's a fault of the game so much. I just think this is something you've never done in your life before. I mean, when have you ever done this unless you're downhill skiing all the time? I kind of felt like I was roller skating a little bit. And but when I started to get into it and like I was flowing with it and I'm like, you know, to me, I really liked it. What I didn't like about it is like, let me play somebody, man. I want to play somebody. I want to try punching their ball. And what actually happens? Do you get a point? I don't know anything, you know?
My guess is when you do get in a match, you're going to get destroyed by someone who plays it all the time.
I will.
You know, it almost feels like I've been ripping on Ripcoil, and that's really not the case. I really applaud this game for what little bit I've been able to see of it, is because it's very original. It's using the technology in a way that I've not seen anybody else use. So I really want to give the developer, and I don't know who made it off the top of my head, I really want to give them the thumbs up and the slow clap as well, because they've done something different, which is I think is great.
I believe it's Sanzaru. Sanzaru.
Okay, well, Sanzaru, you know, slow clap. Thank you for doing something different.
But well, we've been running for a little while here, guys. Do we have any more time left? The one last thing I would like to hit, if we do have a little bit of time, would just be a little more Arizona sunshine if we got a little time, but I don't know how long we're running.
Yeah, no, that'd be great. Yeah, I'd like to talk about that as well, to be honest.
Yep.
Okay, so Arizona sunshine, I have to say that when we were doing this episode, I made a mistake and I got the time wrong, and Gary and Steve were waiting for me and I had no idea. But I was in Arizona sunshine and I was having a ton of fun. I thought the podcast started later. But I was in there for like an hour, and then I was like, oh man, I need to take a little bit of a break. So I took a break and was sitting down and checked on the internet, and I'm like, oh shit, these guys are waiting for me to do a show. But I want to talk about it because Arizona Sunshine, I will say that when you're in the game, when you're actually in the game and the game is running, it is a blast for me to play anyways. But there's so much of the time when you're not in the game, when you're in a loading screen or it crashes or whatever. So it's almost like this game is doing everything that it can to make me not love it, even though I want to love it. How have you guys been doing with it lately?
I was able to play it, well, more correctly, my wife, who very rarely plays a game, and she refuses to play any zombie game. So this one being bright and out in the open, you know, she said it looked fun. So she played it for about an hour today without a crash, which is the longest that it has personally ran on my system without crashing. So I think the recent updates that the developer made and the kind of enabling the I forget what it's called, but they kind of let you enable the alternate update path. And it's kind of like you do when you enable the Steam VR beta. I think that made it more stable. So hey, like you say, the game's a lot of fun. I really haven't progressed any further because most of the time that it's been played since our last show, it's been my wife playing. But you know, I watched her for the whole hour, and I enjoyed watching her. I enjoyed her learning how to use the mechanics and her reaction. So it really is a good game. It's for me, it's one of the better games on the Vive, and you know, I feel like I have a lot of way to go still, and I want to do the horde mode, do the multiplayer horde mode. Maybe we can link up a time and play it at the same time or something. I think that would be fun.
Yeah, I really love this game. I think it's great, but like you, Anthony, I feel like it's I'm trying to love it. It's just kicking me away all the time. These crashes really get annoying after a while. Now, I had big problems when I first started playing this game, but since then they have built out this patch, this beta branch on the Steam. So I've been playing through it, and it has improved it quite a lot. But since I've been playing this game, it's only been probably twice, I think it's been, where I've actually chosen to end the game. You know, I've chosen to turn the game off. Other than that, it's just crashed, and I've just thought it's not worth going through it all again just to start it up. Now, I just think it's a great game. In spite of that, in spite of the problems, I can still encourage people to go and buy it. And this reminds me a little bit of when The Witcher 3 came out. I don't know if you remember that. It had quite a lot of problems. People forget this now, but when The Witcher 3 first came out, it had quite a lot of glitches and then quite a lot of problems, but people still enjoyed the game because it was such a great game. And I think this is exactly the same. I think when it gets through these little teething problems, it's going to be one of the go-to titles for the HTC Vive. And it's not just the crashing as well. There are some other little glitches. I don't know how far you guys have got, and I'm just sort of working my way through the mine at the moment, but there's a section at the beginning of the mine where you have to there's a little cabinet near a museum section, and it's got some old revolvers in there, and you can smash the cabinet and grab a revolver. When I do that, and I've tried this a few different times, the gun will just disappear and the controller won't work properly. So I can't see the gun unless I fire it. When I fire it, it will flash up, but I can't teleport with that controller then from that point on, and it just won't work correctly. So I have to quit out and then come back in. And these are all little problems that just are difficult to get past when you have to quit right out of the game and load it all through again when it's got such long loading times. And it sounds like I hate the game, but I don't. I can still recommend it, because I think in spite of all this, I think it's one of the best titles for the Vive, without a doubt.
One little thing I wanted to mention is my biggest issue with the game is when you die, sometimes the checkpointing, it's like they send you way the hell back. And so it's like I die, and then I'm like, really? You're going to send me way back here where I'm dealing with this car where you grab the wrench and the alarm goes off? You're going to send me all the way back there? I've already done this a million times. Steve, you know what I'm talking about.
I had the same problem. So I did the whole car thing. You grab the wrench, you take out that wave of zombies, you use the wrench, you go across the bridge. I had happened twice. I got across the bridge, took out all the zombies across the bridge, and it would crash. and it would take me all the way back to the car, and I cleared it. And so I've cleared it twice. And then today my wife, she picked up from that spot, and she cleared it and was able to keep going because it didn't crash on her. I was kind of like, oh, of course, you know. So yeah, that exact spot like that. I just, when you said that, it got the reaction out of me, because I feel your frustration.
Yeah, the part that I'm stuck at right now is not that much farther than that. And it's at this one point where like a school bus comes tumbling down, and then a ton of zombies. It's before you get into the mine. So Gary is actually farther. I have not seen a dark area. I've only seen sunlight everywhere I've been in this game for the most part. I mean, there's some shade here and there. But what happens to me is that sequence where all those zombies come running at you, I'm able to take a lot of them out and do what I need to do, but I eventually get overwhelmed and I die. And then then it sends me back to the point where it's like, oh my God, I got to go back into this snack shop and get my grenades. I got to get all the guns back. I got to get my M16 back. And I'll go over to where you activate the thing that basically causes all the zombies to come, and I'll set my grenades down there, and I'll be like, okay, I'm going to set these babies right here. I'll come back, and I try to set everything up in a certain way so I can handle this zombie horde. Do you guys know that if you find a hamburger patty, you can take the hamburger patty and eat it? Yeah. I didn't know that for the first like few hours I was playing this game, but if you look at your watch has a health meter on it. And like it'll say 50% health, 60% health, or stuff like that. And you can go to a refrigerator and you'll find like a hamburger patty. You just grab it and it like eats a little bit of it. Take your hand away, eat a little bit more of it. It's kind of weird because you almost clunk the controller into your headset, because I think they were a little bit more on the Oculus side of the coin. Maybe they didn't calculate exactly how big the Vive controller is, because I'm smacking my headset. What up, Vertigo Games? But I'll take a hamburger and I'll actually bring it over to where my little grenades are, and I'll have loaded up all my stock of bullets. I get back over there, I start the thing up again, I have my grenades. Do I just suck at throwing grenades, or is throwing grenades not very easy to do?
It's not great. No, I don't like doing that. I avoid throwing them, to be honest. But that section that you're talking about, that took me quite a long time to get past. But that's a really cool section, because where that bus goes over the cliff, and then you see all these zombies jumping down, and you just think, and then you've got the voiceover of the guy saying, "Oh, here they come." You just think it's a really good section. And on that bit, I'd actually cleared it. But the music didn't change and the game wouldn't progress. And I was thinking, what the hell? Because I didn't really want to go back and start again, because I thought I've cleared it. And I went onto YouTube and had a look at some videos. And as soon as you clear that section, then you can go into the mine. But for some reason, it just wasn't clicking over. The game wasn't clicking over. And what it was, I actually saw, you know, where the cliff face is, and you see those zombies in the distance, they're walking on the top of the cliff. Well, I saw this little figure on the section below sort of flailing around. So one of the zombies hadn't actually got down to me. He'd got stuck up the top. And so in the end, I managed to shoot him. It took me a long time to shoot him. And as soon as I shot him, it clicked over, and then I was able to go down the mine. But I must have been wandering around that section for about half an hour with nothing to do. I just couldn't understand why it wasn't clicking over.
Oh, man.
But no, it's a really impressive little bit. That was one of the first, well, no, not one of the first bits that impressed me, of course, but it was something that really stuck out to me when I got to that bit. It's great.
It's like one of the things like the Uncharted games did real well. There really wasn't any bosses per se, but they had these big set pieces. So the boss was a key event happening, and the bus is kind of like that. This is what it reminds me of. I haven't played it in the headset, but I've seen it from watching.
Well, it's like that one bridge where you get to all those cars. They have these set piece moments where, you know, you get to a certain place and then all of a sudden the attack comes. But I like the fact that you're teleporting around and you're opening up these car doors, you're opening up the trunks, And the cars are modeled very simply, but you know, sometimes you see some clips in there. There's these water bottles and like soda bottles everywhere, and I pick them up and I try to, like, can I drink it? Can I open the cap? It doesn't seem to do anything, but the hamburger patties actually do seem. Has anybody been able to restore their health with anything other than a hamburger patty?
I haven't.
No.
So those water bottles, I don't know why they're always, because the guy even says, I'm thirsty, I hope they have a fridge. And it's
yeah,
like,
it does. I noticed that as well, and I thought, what am I supposed to do with this water bottle? It's got to be here. He even mentioned it, so it's got to do something. But yeah, it's just these hamburgers, I think.
I thought maybe you had to use your other hand to like pop off the cap, and I was trying to kind of see if I could do that, but I don't know.
You guys know if you shoot a tire, it'll flatten the tire and you'll hear the air hiss a little bit. Anybody? Next time you're in a quiet setting, I know you've probably blown up tires and with grenades and or barrels that you can shoot, but no, just shoot a tire when it's quiet and you hear a little hiss and you'll see it go flat. So they've done a few little cool environment things where they've given it an extra little tick of realism.
Hey, what about all the masks that are all over the place? There's all these masks. And I pick up a mask and I try to see, you know, can I put it on and does it do it? But it just falls to the ground.
It does. I think some of them do go on, but it's got to be, I would imagine it's for the co-op section. You can choose which mask you want for the co-op or something. I don't know, but.
So in the very beginning, in the little cave that you start out in when you first launched the game, I picked up a mask or a hat or something and I put it on and it didn't drop to the ground. And I think now that I have that on, everything else is dropping to the ground. And I want to say that's verified because I read it somewhere. They, you know, someone's kind of said the same thing. So if you're wearing an object, be it a hat or a mask, there doesn't seem to be a way to take that off so that you can put something else on.
There's these rubber duckies that you find in different places. And I thought I heard somebody say that you can throw those rubber duckies at somebody and it kills them or something. And I grabbed one of the rubber duckies and I tried to throw it at a zombie, but it didn't do anything. No, you guys hear anything about that?
I didn't see that one, no.
All right. Well, anyway, that's a little bit more of Arizona Sunshine. So we're all still enjoying that despite its myriad assortment of issues. But basically, that's going to wrap it up for episode 14 of VR Roundtable. Once again, we ask you guys if you could leave a comment on our YouTube page or possibly an iTunes review. We'd really appreciate that. And we also have various Reddit threads. If you ever want to come in there and leave a comment or say something to us, you can do that as well if you see one of the Reddit posts when we upload the video. vrroundtable@gmail.com is our email. Anything else, guys?
Just to mention, we've got a Twitter account now. I just set that up yesterday. So if you want to follow us on Twitter, then we're at VR_roundtable. So you can do that.
Alrighty. And that pretty much does it for episode 14. We'll see you guys next time.
Yeah, I'll see you next time. Cheers. Bye.
Good night, everybody.